Hello, my name is Edward Haletky. I'm with the virtualization practice. I am a virtualization security analyst, and I've been recently playing around with VMware LogInsight, specifically for security purposes. I run VCNS edges, app, endpoint, everything. And I'm going, hey, there's nothing for LogInsight for all of this, so I want to actually build my own content pack and actually be able to do this. But I was actually thinking further than that. I don't want just my networking switches. I want what vCenter is happening. I want to know who did what, when, where, and how. The auditing dream, if I include why. But anyways, I'm with the virtualization practice, as I said. So I'm going to show you how to create your own LogInsight dashboards for security. So first off, this is what I ended with. Yes, there's a bunch of blanks in here you can see. That's because this is my live running environment. You have no need to know my usernames. So assume something's in there that you can name. I'm going to use the mouse over here because that's just like a little too far away from me. So this is my total events that I'm looking at. These are interesting ones. These are events over time by Virtual Center username. This is actually a field that exists in LogInsight. The reason being is one of the hardening guide rules says you should have for every service a separate username. So if I'm using LogInsight, VCOps, Embotics, name any third party, when they log into Virtual Center, they should be using a unique username. So should every administrator. So I wanted to track out who is actually logging into my environment. Now, this one is an admin user, purple. This one's administrator, that's not always good. So I wanted to find out who they were. Then I went and said, okay, let's look at my VCNS log and say I want firewall events grouped by host name. I want to know which hosts are doing the most firewall events. Then I wanted to do events grouped by source, which is the source of the event. And yes, I'm sorry, these are very small. They'll be blown up shortly. And then I want to do, hey, you know, it's really cool. VCNS has packet state. I want to know if you drop, deny, accept an event. The reason being is if I'm accepting events and I have a security breach, where am I going to go look first? Everything that was accepted, and find out why. And then last, I want to know the count of events by VMware usernames. Again, another field that exists inside of LogInsight. So the first thing you do, total events. You just go to interactive and analytics and you bring up this thing that says this is a total events. Nothing unique, nothing special. I'm not searching for anything, right? And then I save that. You get this by default. But what I really want is the total events by the VC username. And this is very small here. It's grouped by VC username. There's a little checkbox way down at the bottom that says VC username. That comes by default. As long as the stuff that's in here that shows up as an event or event type has VC username as a field, it'll show up in that list. So it took me a while to find it because not all my events have VC username because they're not all vCenter events. So I did that. So I now have everything I need over here. Can I do that? Doesn't show up. I'm sorry. I'm going to use the mouse again. And then immediately when I brought up this dashboard, I noticed I had 2 administrator users, and it's like, okay, I really need to find out who those guys were. I clicked on them. They brought me up to my administrator and said what actions they took, and guess what they were? Things I knew about. If they weren't things I knew about, I would be in trouble. So that's the very first piece of useful information I got out of this whole process. Next, and this is a blow up of the VC username, as you can see, instead of being tiny, I just want to blow it up. The next thing I did, by the way, up in here, you can actually save the dashboard, which is actually the most important feature, and I'll show you how to do this one. I wanted to count the firewall events over time. VCNS edges, when you feed their syslog into LogInsight, does something really interesting. It has a word called firewall. It's part of the log. Made my life a whole lot easier. I just searched for firewall. Came up with a whole bunch of events. And then again, I did the drop down and picked out host name, which is the default that's in there. And now I have this nice little chart that gives me one that says iSCSI, DMZ, and a couple of things I'm not going to tell you about, 1 and T. So I actually mapped my iSCSI net controllers are on a separate network, and I have a firewall between them. Because I don't want just anybody talking to them. vCenter should be the only thing talking to them when I set that up. And actually, specific hosts, there's a few other tools that do as well. So I now have my second dashboard effectively. And my third was I wanted source for the same exact piece of information. I would want to know where that was coming from. So if I'm going to be going over my firewall, I want to know where I'm getting my data is coming from. So is it coming from inside, outside? Kind of important. So again, I made another dashboard. All I did was select, for the same thing, firewall, source. That's it. And up in the upper corner here, I'm going to move my mouse. I clicked on Add to Dashboard, and that just added to a dashboard. I just created my TechSci Whales security dashboard, and it just worked for me. And then last, I wanted to do something special. I wanted to actually get the state, and that's that drop. Drop, accept, deny. I wanted to find out what was really happening. So in order to do that, I had to go into LogInsight and create my own field. I called it firewall packet state. I selected the drop and said, value is not drop, value is drop, view chart, and I actually did an add filter. The field existed, so I did an add filter. It brings up this. You notice I did a slight modification and looked for the word edge, which is right before that, right here. And then I said, okay, I want an underscore and anything after that as the endpoint, and everything in between, which is drop, is considered to be my field. And then I was able to do is get accept on iSCSI, drop on iSCSI, drop on DMZ, accept on DMZ, and so forth, which was rather kind of cool. Now I have by packet state what's happening in my firewall network. This is important. You need to build your field very carefully. If you select this by default, it's going to bring out this whole string, not everything. It's going to go to the equal sign. I wanted to shrink it down and expand it, so I wanted just that field. You have to play around with your regular expressions, so really much understand the regular expressions before you do this. And now I'm doing it by firewall packet state and host name. So I got my host name and my state for each of those hosts. Then I add the dashboard. Again, VMware user, it's actually one that's already there. I just selected it. No, remember, I'm not searching for anything. I just selected that one. I got my last dashboard. So I end up with this. So now I have a bunch of dashboards that I can view them anytime, but I want to make a content pack so I can give it to my friends. This is kind of important. I want to share this, have them add more to it. So you go to your dashboards and you're going to actually go underneath the line here and select content packs, and it's going to list them all out and show this. You're going to go to the gears, select export, right? And it's going to export it to a file. And now you go into and import it. You're going to go to the bottom here and import it back in. And it's going to show up like that. Now I named mine TechSci Whales vCenter and VCS Security Content Pack. I'm TechSci Whale, and that's the best way to do it. Clearly identifies who it came from. And now what I can do is send that content pack to anybody. And it'll include all the fields, all the rules I set up, and then people can add their own. That's all there is to it. And I end up with this nice little dashboard that I run all the time to find out what's happening in my environment from the firewalls and inside of vCenter. Any questions? There you go.